Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Hooping Out Loud podcast. Me and Noah are back. Noah, it's good to be back. I know we haven't recorded in a while, one of these full episodes, but we're back better than ever, and let's get right into the episode. I know it's been a few weeks into the season, but let's talk about the Utah Jazz. They've been a huge surprise to everybody. Everybody thinks that the Utah Jazz are coming into this season tanking, trying to get Victor Wembanyama, and now they're proving everybody wrong.
I really wanted to talk about this. And the Jazz have just absolutely proven everyone wrong to start the season. And the Hawks just played them last night, and we did lose to them. And one of the biggest reasons, obviously, I think the Hawks bench scoring was off and wasn't consistent last night as it was when we played the Bucks. But the Jazz are deep. And no one is really talking about how Lauri Markkanen is putting up career numbers right now. Same thing with kind of Kelly Olynyk. He's going off. What a great signing and addition that was. And then all the trades, like let's just talk about it. Getting rid of Rudy Gobert, getting rid of Donovan Mitchell, and you really load up the team with guys who can go score, great role players. They have great pieces, good contracts. They're really in a position to win. And what I also love is how, I guess I kind of just said this, but the team depth is something that I love to see, and that's how you win in the playoffs. And they're proving everyone wrong, and I love it. I absolutely love it. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, just knowing that Colin Sexton comes off the bench, man, that's scary just to see one of the better point guards in the league who's been consistent even when he was in Cleveland. That this team is very well made, and the product that they're putting out there is very well organized, and defensively they're really good. Offensively, they have a lot of guys who can get to the rim and score, and frankly their shooting hasn't been too bad either. But that just comes with the moves that they made this offseason. And to be honest with you, I've really thought about this. I've talked to a lot of people about this, but to be honest with you, the trade between Cleveland and Utah was probably the most fair trade that we've seen, one, in a while, but two, we won't see that even of a trade in the near future for a while. With the Cavs are super deep too, and the Cavs look really good as well. And I think both teams needed this trade to happen. I think both teams are producing really well, and I think both teams are building up a new depth of a roster is hard to come by. And how quick these teams are coming together, the chemistry that's coming together between these teams is pretty nuts.
I do want to build off one of the points you made. And what you said about the bench was amazing. And I really want to talk about that as well. Having Colin Sexton, Malik Beasley, THT, Rudy Gay, Walker Kessler, all coming off the bench. And then you have other guys like Obagi and Alexander Walker who don't really play at the moment, but they're still trying to find their roles. And no one is talking about how deep, I don't know why people aren't talking about how deep this team is. And it's almost scary because think about this. They could trade 3 guys with good contracts who have really good potential for an all-star and be one of the top teams. And even though they already are right now, they could be even better, which is even crazier. And again, I am one person who loves depth. I love having guys you can just throw out there and you can trust them and put them in different situations. And that's what they have. And I really like it. And again, I mean, even I feel like the players would even say that Jazz are not one of the teams they want to play right now. And again, also on that trade, the Cleveland and Utah trade, how it was really fair. I completely agree. At the time, I didn't think it was fair. I didn't think it was a good trade. But now looking back on it and looking at it now, it's It's really a fair trade. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell's having a great year in Cleveland, and then obviously look at the Jazz. Like, they're the top team in the West at the moment, and I really think that, again, like you said, we probably won't see another trade like this that's that fair. I would almost say that the trade that happened before, the whole Rudy Gobert trade, you know, I was saying that that was the most unfair trade I've ever seen. It was just completely just diluted the trade market and hurt everything. But again, now looking on it in the future, it's really a trade that has helped the Jazz more than it's helped the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves don't even look that hot right now, and I'm not a fan of having two centers that you're paying 20 plus $1 million to. So it's really something crazy, and I really honestly don't even know what to think about the whole thing. It's kind of just crazy at the moment.
To jump in, here's a question that I'm gonna give to you, and I think you'll have a lot to say about this. But do you think that Rudy Gobert was the problem in Utah, or do you think that Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert just didn't work well together? Or why do you think they blew this team up? And why do you think that Utah had made such good moves in this offseason to make the team that they have now?
That's a great question. Uh, so when I'm looking at teams with multiple superstars, you can tell that those superstars are going to get the ball. They're going to put those shots up. They're going to get the shots. They're going to get the minutes. They're going to get all of that. But what you have now with the Jazz is you have a bunch of guys who can go out there, get 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15, 20, 30, whatever, and they're going to produce. They're going to be efficient. They're going to play well. It's really like, also team chemistry is a thing too. And I don't know if I would blame everything on Donovan Mitchell and Gobert, but I'm personally not a huge fan of Gobert's play style. I think his play style is kind of on the way out per se in the NBA with the slow center, high defensive IQ kind of thing. He's not the guy that's going to go out there and put 50 points up. But obviously, he gets traded to a team where they have a center who can do that in Cat. So it's a little different in that per se. But back on do I think that or did they blow up the team kind of because of this? I don't know per se if they did that thinking that they would get all of this in return, but I'm sure the Jazz GM was on call listening to these teams offer up things for their players, and he was just drooling because when you're getting crazy amounts of talent, assets, tradable contracts on your team with just a few moves, people are forgetting that Royce O'Neal was on this team, and there's been tons of other guys, Joe Ingles, that they've also just either let go or have traded, and they got stuff back for him. Like Nickeil Alexander-Walker was on the team before any of these guys, and obviously he's not playing yet, but he's a young stud with high potential that a lot of teams are after. And what I think the Jazz have done is, like I said before, when you get rid of these superstars, it opens up your team. That's why Mike Conley is getting so many assists, because obviously he's a great point guard and a great passer, and he has that basketball IQ to do it. But now you have a team that has really high chemistry, really high IQ with good veterans who can lead these young players and put them in the right position. I think it's a great move that what the Jazz did. And obviously what we said before, how they kind of blew up the team. I don't know if I would even call it a blowing up the team. I would honestly say they just reworked the team and added to the roster of guys. I mean, I know we saw them lose in the bubble. We saw them. We saw them lose in the playoffs last year, and it's just, they're not getting the results they want. But now with this new look team, no one's really know what to expect from them, and it's really a surprise, and it's honestly a shock. What do you think?
I I think that you had some great points. I think that Donovan Mitchell is one of the best guards in the NBA, I'd say. I think he produces what a lot of people don't think he does. I think defensively he's a better defender than people think he is. Um, and I think he needed he needed a new system. He was going through a lot. Um, and I think, after the whole COVID Rudy Donovan Mitchell fight, I think you just knew that their whole system was going downhill. And after that, you kind of just have to say, let's blow this up and try and get pieces from this. And once they blew it up and they found those pieces, I don't think they realized how much potential they had this season, at least fan wise. But if you look at their roster on paper, their roster is very deep, as you said. And I think not just that, but with the talent they have, they also we're also forgetting that they have future picks out of all of this. And that's from not just the Rudy trade, but they also got a lot from the Donovan Mitchell trade. And people aren't aware of that. And, I think that's why people think, oh, we're blowing this whole thing up and we're gonna reset and this is kind of gonna be a year that people are gonna hate because we're gonna have a down year, new roster, whatever. But in the end of all of this, you got pieces back that no one really thought, oh, they're gonna bring high numbers to the table. And yeah, I would agree. Like Lauri Markkanen, I want to bring him up for a minute. Lauri Markkanen, he he used to be on the Bulls. I'm a Bulls fan, obviously. He sucked on the Bulls. I mean, yeah, it was his first couple of years. He had Fred Hoiberg. I don't think he produced in the way any Chicago fan wanted him to produce. I don't think he had the right coaching staffs for him to produce. He looked better in Cleveland, and then he also needed a new system. Once he got to Cleveland, he looked a lot better, and then you see you see the potential that he had in Cleveland, and you give Utah the chance to really give him a shot. And now that he's got the shot, he's got the coaching staff to really produce him. He's been looking really good. He's had career numbers this year, and he's made one of the biggest impacts on the Utah Jazz that anybody's seen this year. And it's pretty crazy to see the production that he's given and to see the difference that he's making, especially in a 3-year span that no one really expected him to have. And it's pretty crazy to think about.
I totally agree with the whole Lauri Markkanen thing. Like I said, he's having a career year right now, and he looks just absolutely like the number one player on this team, and which is crazy. They have guys that have been there for a year, like Mike Conley. I mean, he can go get scored too, but he really doesn't need to at the moment. I mean, he's got guys he can just feed the ball to and give buckets to, and he can just get all the assists, which is good. That's what you want out of your point guard. But I do want to talk about something that I know you really want to talk about. Let's talk about how the Clippers are struggling real quick. What do you think about this whole Kawhi situation? He re-aggravated his knee. He's been out since October 23rd when he last played the Suns. I mean, they just do not look that good right now. I know Ty Lue is up there coaching, and I know he's doing the best with what he can, but they have a crazy roster. What do you think about this?
So I think I've talked about this in previous segments in the quietly balling, but I have a lot of opinions on this, and I think that they they should have known. Seeing how Kawhi has been going through these past 2 years, I knew he was going to struggle. Obviously, he played well when he came back. He started the year really well, but with how much pain he's been within the past 3 years or 2 years or whatever it's been, I knew there was going to be some irritation. I knew there was going to be some struggle with if there's one thing wrong with him, we're sitting him because they're paying him so much money to do these big jobs and he can't do it. He's at towards the end of his career where he's too injury prone. He's one of the greater players to ever play the game. But here's what I'll say. I think he's at the end of his career like Kobe was. He's too injury prone. His body can't stand a full, not even a half a year of basketball. And now he's week to week. The Clippers are on notice. I mean, they're struggling a lot this year. They're 6-7, and a lot of people think they're title contenders, they're 7-6, and people think they're title contenders. You can't be a game over 500 if you're going to be a title contender. You have to start winning games, and I think a part of it is Ty Lue's management. I've watched a few games of the Clippers, and I really think Ty Lue has a big piece in their management of when players play, what players don't play. And I think at the end of games, they're sitting John Wall and Paul George too late in the game where they start going down against teams like Cleveland and other teams, and then they can't scrap back into the game because they've sat too long and they've waited too long for the right time to be able to get back into games and strategize. And I think that it's it's very sad to see. I will say that I think the Clippers had so much potential going into this year, but as I said in previous segments, that it's just it's just pretty crazy to think about. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I agree. My thoughts are they still have not addressed the center problem. They don't have a true center. I know people are going to talk about Zubac. They got Moses Brown, Diabate, all that. But again, they still have not addressed it. And I also want to talk about how they really haven't, or I'm sorry, how some of these players on these team haven't really done much with the time that they're given. Like Luke Kennard, like I know points aren't everything, but he's getting about 22 minutes a game and he's scoring 8 points.
Yeah,
And it's like Terrence Mann could do the same thing, but he's getting 17 minutes and 6 points. And it's just a lot of underachieving players. And you could say this also, you could say the same thing about Rocco. You could say the same thing about Batum. And Brandon Boston doesn't really play. Coffee's not really playing. And Preston, like they have a lot of guys on this team, but I do agree with what you said. Ty Lue is not managing this team right. And again, he's doing best with what he can, but when you have some guys underperforming, I mean, obviously upper management GM should be looking to make some moves, but Ty Lue should be putting the best players in the best positions for the team to win. And he's not doing that right now. And again, what you said, how championship teams would be winning right now, it's like, look at the Bucks. The Bucks have had a pretty consistent roster for the last 4 years, and they're always a contending team. Obviously, Giannis, I know that. Drew, Chris Middleton, we know. But the Clippers have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, an older John Wall. They have Norman Powell, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, and like I don't even know how you have a roster like this and they can't win games. They can't close out games, and I think that's their biggest problem right now is they can't close. And I know that's asking a lot if you need John Wall and Paul George to kind of carry this team, but that's kind of what is going on right now. I mean, Norman Powell's going to be forced to step up. Reggie Jackson's going to be forced to step up, and Zubac's not playing bad. And I'm not going to say he's out here playing bad, but he's not the answer that they need at center. With how this team runs and how the fast they play, Zubac is not the right center for them. And that's my biggest thing on it. What do you think?
I agree. I've been telling Clippers fans this for a while now, and I think it's a big piece that people don't look at. I think their rebounding has been a struggle. I think offensive teams play so well against them because they struggle so much on the defensive end, getting rebounds, finishing possessions defensively. And then, you know, a lot of the time when they play in transition, they'll get the ball up the court. Don't get me wrong, but their goal is to get the ball up the court, and then either Reggie Jackson, John Wall, Paul George, or one of their guards are just going to go ISO and try and get to the rim. And they offensively, they have all the talent in the world. Don't get me wrong. But the amount the ball sticks with that team is crazy. They don't move the ball well. There are spurts where you see them and you're like, whoa, this team is really good offensively. And then there are spurts that you see them and you're like, how is this team an NBA team? Which is crazy to think about with all the talent that they have. But again, it goes back to game planning and coaching, and it's just hard to watch as an NBA fan.
If you're Ty Lue right now, what would your plan be? Like, what do you think is going through his head, and what do you think he's trying to get done? Obviously with Kawhi out, it's going to be a little hard, but you think this is kind of be what happened last year with no Kawhi, or what do you think?
That's a good question. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I think Clipper fans are gonna be upset about this, but I think there's two things you really have to look at this point as the Clippers front office, as the Clippers coaching staff. You really have to put in the back of your mind: is Kawhi done? Is Kawhi gonna be done for the year? And you have to look at it as, is Kawhi available to be traded? Can we look to trade him and get assets for him? Can we look into maybe dropping him and picking up assets? Because if you look at his contract, they are paying him way too much for just sitting on the bench. And I think as you are Ty Lue, I think you have to look at this season as, Kawhi's not going to play the rest of the year. How are we managing this team to win an NBA Finals? And I don't think he's looked at that. I think he's preparing and waiting for Kawhi to get back and looking at rotations as if Kawhi was in the rotation. And you can't look at it like that anymore, because Kawhi, you can't trust Kawhi. Yeah, Kawhi's a great basketball player when he's on the court. You can't trust the process of how much he's struggling right now, and you have to look outside of your dynasty player, and that's not the dynasty player but the franchise player, and take advantage of that. So I think that's how you have to approach it, as not just the Clippers coaching staff, but as the Clippers front office.
One thing that I kind of just thought of was, honestly, I think that the Clippers might be in a better position to trade for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield than the Lakers are. I know there are other teams out there who could trade. Like we just talked about, the Jazz could easily make that move, but the Clippers are definitely in a position to make a move like that. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it wouldn't help them, because I think getting Buddy Hield and Miles Turner on this team would be unreal. But I guess my question to you is, what do you think about that? Or I guess, do you think of any potential moves that you could see them making? Because I think they could easily move Rocco, Batum, Kennard, and some of these other guys if they really need to, and maybe even some of their younger assets like Preston and Mann and Diabate. They could easily move some of these guys to get a superstar center, or maybe some more shooters to surround Paul George with.
I wouldn't hate on that trade, but then you have to look at, would that, I mean, I don't know, would that be a good trade for the Pacers? And I don't know. I mean, the Pacers aren't playing that well, and I think if you put a healthy Kawhi, you let Kawhi sit the rest of the year, and you trade for him, and you let him, you let him practice, you let him get his knee healthy, and you practice and play for next year. You got Tyrese Halliburton, who I think could be one of the best point guards in the league. You have Kawhi at this point, and then you build around them too. And I don't think in off season, if you tank, you could try and get Victor Wembanyama. That's a 3-man. I mean, that's scary to look at, those 3 guys together. And then, you can go into free agency and try and get some other assets, and you're a contending team. So I wouldn't put it against them to make that trade, and I think it would be a good idea to set that trade up. And I think for Paul George's sake and John Wall's sake, and I think for the Clippers' sake, I think it would be huge because, yeah, Zubats is good, but if you have Miles Turner starting and Zubats coming off the bench, man, that's a scary group right there.
I do agree. I think that would be better than what they have at least now. I mean, you would agree with this too. Or the best ability is availability, right? Like you need people to play, and you're paying Kawhi almost $40 million a year to kind of sit. Yeah, like we both understand that he's injured. We know that. But how long can the Clippers just sit here and be okay with this? Like they need to win. Like they're spending all this money. They're over the salary cap, just sitting there not contending really. I mean, I know they could probably make it to the finals, but I mean, if Kawhi's not going to play, then I don't really know if they're going to win that much. And that's why I agree with you. But on the other hand, I don't know if they would ever trade Kawhi. I don't know if Kawhi is like available like that. And the Pacers, what they would have to give up for Kawhi would be unreal, and which would be good for the Clippers. The Clippers would get a haul for that. But I don't know. It's a very difficult. Obviously, that's a difficult situation, but there's always speculation, and there's always thoughts around what could be happening and all that. So, yeah, I could see it. I could definitely see it, and yeah,
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's something that the Clippers need to look into, if they want a shot at winning a championship. And I know, we had that segment with Max, and quietly bawling about the Clippers, and we were talking about how when if the Clippers don't win this year, as a Clippers fan, how do you really stay to be a Clippers fan? And I think looking at the front office, what they're doing, looking at how they haven't seen any progress in Ty Lue, it's just been downhill from when they've got to the Western Conference Finals against the Suns. How do you manage this? How do you stay a Clippers fan when there's no progress and you haven't ever won an NBA Finals? I just don't get it. I don't get how you stay a Clippers fan. As a Bulls fan, it's hard to watch the Bulls enough. I mean, they're struggling as it is, and yeah, you as a sports fan, you stay loyal to your team, but the pain you go through as a Clippers fan, if you don't win this year, the real question is, are they ever going to win? And that's something you really need to look into, I feel like, as a Clippers fan.
oh, definitely. I think they need to prioritize winning above all. To be honest, to be completely honest with you, and they should be looking at every opportunity they can to make a move to improve the team, because that's really what matters, and that's the GM's job, is to make the team better. And Kawhi, I'm sorry, not Kawhi. Ty Lue's going to do what he's going to do with the people he has, right? And he can't do much about that. He's not the one sitting in there making the trade conversations. He's not in there making salary cap decisions. He's just there to coach, and that's just kind of what he's going to do. And whatever the GM kind of decides is what's going to happen, right? I think every NBA team's made a move or two that the fans really don't like, and I think if they traded Kawhi, like it would not be a good good social move on the standpoint. But
And I'll add on to you, like, yeah, Ty Lue doesn't make the front office decisions, but as a coach, since you don't make those front office decisions, you have to work with what you have. And I think the Clippers are struggling right now because Ty Lue hasn't done a good job managing the group he has right now.
I completely agree. I mean, again, like Ty Lue is just going to do what he has to do, or I guess what he can do, right? And yeah, I mean that's just what's going to happen. But I do want to talk about. Let's go on the other side. Let's talk about a team that's kind of playing well again. What do you think about the Bucks this year? And you think they're finals or bust, or what are you thinking?
I gotta give you props as a Atlanta Hawks fan. The only team that's really gotten into them and showed them what the NBA is about. But no, on the real side of things, I really think that the Bucks are really good this year. They, as you said earlier, their roster is it couldn't be more consistent, and it amazes me because they just keep their roster steady every year. They've had their coaching staff forever. They've had their front office the same forever. And they just keep moving forward. And it's crazy to see that every year they are a title contender. And I think as long as they stay healthy, the reason that they lost last year was because of injuries and because they had issues throughout the year last year. I think without Middleton, it really hurt them last year in the playoffs. And if they stay healthy, the sky's the limit for them. And I think that they're they're gonna fight for a finals if they're healthy. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So on speaking on the Hawks beating them the other night, that was without Trey Young. But a lot of the guys on the bench and also Dejounte Murray, the starters, all stepped up. It was a crazy game, but I do want to say that I still think the Bucks are going to be the best team at this current moment. The Bucks are the best team, and it's really crazy. Again, what you were saying about how consistent they are. They're one of the most consistent teams I've ever seen, like at least this year, and for how they can just do this for what 4+ years just consistently. It's pretty crazy, and no one else is talking about how Chris Middleton hasn't even played a game yet. Like they're 10-1 without Chris Middleton. This is with just Drew Holiday, Giannis, Brooke, Bobby, Grayson Allen, Javon Carter, obviously, and then just a bunch of young guys coming off the bench, and then George Hill and all that. But it's really, really crazy to see. And I'm in the East. Like we're both in the East, and we got to go through them to even get to the finals. And I honestly, in a 7-game series, Giannis and that crew, I don't know if there's an East team that can take them for 7 games. People are going to say the Celtics. People are going to say the different East teams that are top, and I don't even know, to be honest with you. I don't even know if the Cleveland Cavaliers could take it, even with basically two 7-footers down there. So I guess it's going to come down to stopping Giannis, and then once you stop Giannis, you got to stop the shooters. But then it's like kind of pick your poison. Like, do you want to face Giannis, or do you want to face them just taking threes all over you? Because no one talks about how Brook Lopez can splash threes. I'm pretty sure he was a 40% 3-point shooter last year, or maybe it was the year before. But any one of these guys that plays can hit threes, they can shoot, play defense. Like Bobby Portis, like that guy's playing out of his mind in the Bucks, and no one ever thought he would be doing this type of stuff, but he is. And, Grayson Allen's having a great year, and he had a great time last year. And same thing. We just saw Javon Carter come off a career game last night, and it's about like these guys stepping up. They have guys on their bench and guys who don't really play that are just there and willing and ready to step up whenever they need to, and that's kind of that championship mentality, championship culture that they have there. And no one's really talking about that. Also Mike Budenholzer, he was the old Hawks coach, and I love and hate him. But yeah, part of me thinks that some of that game from the Hawks beating the Bucks was, Mike Budenholzer. They beat us a couple years ago in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we just have some animosity towards them. And yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Oh, I want to add something into what you said though, like the consistency, as we keep saying, the consistency of the organization is just the main reason, and I believe this is true. the main reason that this organization is so successful, because they have they get used to each, and then they keep playing with each other. And the more you play and the more experience you get with guys, the more comfortable you get. And these guys have been together for 3 or 4 years, as you said now. And I don't think there's any other organization other than maybe the Warriors that have had that experience. And it's hard to come by when you're playing that deep of a team that has that much experience together.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I love what you said about the Warriors because we talk about it all the time. The Warriors have been playing together for God, maybe that core has been there forever. Basically, like as much as far back as I can remember in the NBA, that core was there. And again, that's what we keep saying, consistency, consistency, consistency. And that's what teams want. That's what they're looking for. And that's what these guys on the Bucks are giving that team. And they are very, very, very willing to pay all these players to stay, keep that championship mentality. And again, I want to go back to this. When guys go down on that team, everyone else steps up. Brooke Lopez is having the best year he's ever had on the Bucks. And then you could even break that down. Like let's say Bobby Portis. Like Bobby Portis having a crazy time on the Bucks. Like I know last year he was up to 14 points a game. He was getting 9 rebounds a game, but now he's getting 13 points a game, 10 rebounds. He's increased his assist numbers. I know it's early in the season, but these guys are playing so well when one guy goes out because they have that in the back of their head that one guy is out, I got to step up. And instead of one guy taking that role, it's their entire team. And which is crazy because to get that out of your team, you have to be there. You have to have that chemistry. You have to have that winning mentality. And whatever they're doing over there in Milwaukee is working. And they need to keep doing it because I really don't know who's beating this team in a 7-game series. I mean, I'll say the same thing about the Warriors, even though right now they're dealing with some injuries and some other defensive problems and not scoring enough. But it's almost crazy how instead of the Warriors with their shooting and their consistency there, but now you have the Bucks who are great defensively. They can score on you. They'll figure out new ways to score, and also just number one, they have Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's right now probably the best player in the NBA. And that if I'm picking anyone to start a team around, it's him. It's him.
And just to go on another topic, and I know we've kind of been on this topic for a little bit today, but I really want to talk about the emphasis of coaching staff. There are teams that are beating expectations that don't have those star guys, and you look at rosters, and I'm going to give one team out right now, and I bet you can guess who it is, but I want to go into talking about the San Antonio Spurs because that team doesn't have a superstar, and it's because of their coaching that they are beating people's expectations. I think they're a game under 500 right now, and they're competing in the West, and the West has been way better than the East this year. And it's crazy to see the expectations of teams and teams beating those expectations, and I think it comes from a lot from behind the scenes and what's happening.
Oh, I completely agree. I really want to kind of relate this to the Jazz almost. And, this whole sense that you don't have the superstars on your team, so you can spread the ball around more. And, when I'm looking at the Spurs roster and I'm going down and you can see the top two guys on the team are right now Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell. They're both scoring 20 points a game. And they have Trey Jones, and then they have obviously Jakob Poeltl, Josh Richardson, Doug McDermott, who are all scoring 10 points a game, getting about 20 plus minutes a game. But then you have guys like Zach Collins, Wesley, Basie, Bates Diop, who are getting less than 20 minutes a game. They're also putting up 7 to 8 points a game. I know points aren't everything, but they're playing their roles and they're doing them well. And it's it's going back to that, when you don't have superstars on the team, you can spread the ball around. And so when you can do that, it opens the floor because, a lot of the teams now in the NBA are used to guarding that one superstar, the two superstars they have on the team. So you're focusing on those two players. But when you're doing that now against these teams and these smaller teams who have a lot of young talent, a lot of guys who can kind of go out there and score, when you're doing that, you can just pass the ball out to there because one of these guys is going to be open. They're going to have a lane to the basket. They're going to have an open shot, something like that. You can set a pickup. You can do some bunch of different things. You could say that for any other team. But when you have no true superstar on the team, no one who's going to, have all the shots in the game, who is going to consistently have certain amounts of shots or percentages or whatever, you can spread the ball around. I would even say the same thing about the Portland Trailblazers right now. I know they have Dame, they have Anthony Simmons, whatever, and they have obviously Jeremy Grant, but they have guys who can just go out there and score. Like, that's the thing. And, it goes back to depth, right? All of these teams we just mentioned have insane amounts of depth, and not a lot of these coaching staffs or GMs or whatever are using the depth on their team to make their entire team better. And this is one thing I had a problem with Nate McMillan last year, is we didn't play Jalen Johnson, we didn't play some of our younger guys, and they would just play in the G League. And to me, and me being a basketball fan, I'm all about depth, and I'm going to keep saying it. I will forever say this: depth is going to win you the championship, and that's how you're going to win a 7-game series. Because if you have one guy go down, you need another guy to step up. But when you have this depth, and you have 5, 6, 7 players who can score 10 points a game, it's going to be so much easier for them to make that up than it would be if, let's just say, LeBron goes down, right? Like, if
Yeah.
LeBron goes down, that it's going to be super hard for the Lakers to win. I'd say the same thing for the Clippers too. We just talked about, Kawhi goes down, it's going to be hard for them to win because they don't have that type of depth, or at least they do, but they're not performing to the way that they need to. And, I want to tie this all back to the whole thing with the Spurs. Spurs don't have these guys. I mean, obviously we knew Keldon Johnson was going to be really good and he was going to be the number one option on the team, but we could talk about coaching staffs too. Popovich is the best coach in the NBA right now. I mean, I'm sorry. You could say whoever you want is the best coach. Greg Popovich is a Hall of Fame coach, guaranteed, hands down, one of the greatest coaches of all time. And he can coach anyone. He can literally coach anyone. And I would say the same thing for Eric Spoelstra. I would say the same thing for a lot of coaches in the league right now. But then you go look at, let's go look at Portland, a new coach in Chauncey. And they just have guys. So, again, it's this whole depth thing. And, I'm going to say this: Chauncey allows these guys to play. Popovich allows these guys to play. And I don't know the Jazz head coach name off the top of my head, but he's allowing these guys to play, and they're getting him everything they want because he has the faith and the trust in these players to do that. And that's what a lot of these other teams are lacking. Sorry for the rant. I would love to hear your response.
No, you were spot on. The coaching staff is a big impact on a lot of these teams, and there was one coach that is one of the better coaches in the NBA, but I think I don't know why they're struggling so much, but it's Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat. They've been struggling all year, and they are so deep. They are so deep, and they don't use their talents to their advantage. And it's been hard to watch the Heat all year, and I don't know why it's been like that, but they've just been struggling consistently, and I don't know what's been going on in that organization. I don't know what's been happening behind the scenes, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on the Miami Heat, why they're struggling.
Oh, definitely.
So that's kind of my inner division rival right there. And I do like watching Heat games. I'm a Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra fan, even though I'm a Hawks fan. I'm a fan of good coaching, good GM, good teams and stuff like that who support their players and try to build that winning championship mentality. But
when I look at this team right now, it's a lot of guys who are not performing to the way that Eric Spoelstra needs to be developing them. And, obviously they have a lot of older guys. They have Kyle Lowry, they have Jimmy Butler, Bam's been in the league for a minute. Tyler Hero's been in the league for a little bit. Kyle Lowry's not really producing the way that they really need him to. I know he's a, pest on defense and he can score some buckets, but he's not what he used to be. And we knew that, right? And I'll even talk about Duncan Robinson right now. That was a terrible contract that they gave him. They obviously know that. They were trying to trade him, but I don't know a team that wants him. Like, I'm sorry, Duncan Robinson has killed his trade value. And I would even say the same thing for a lot of the players on this team, because they need to be looking for trades, because Gabe Vincent, he's getting 25 minutes a game. He's scoring 8 points. Last year he had a great year. And it's like, what's going on? What is really happening with this team? And I don't want to say that PJ Tucker was, the end all be all, because Jay Crowder is trying to get on this team. He's been trying to get on this team for a while and kind of fill that role that PJ Tucker had. But now what they have right now is just a lot of guys who are underperforming. Caleb Martin's not doing anything much. He's Duncan Robinson, Dwayne Dedman, Gabe Vincent. I mean, even you could throw Kyle Lowry in there. They're not really producing to the way that they need to be to make this team win. And, again, with this whole depth thing, their bench is severely underperforming, severely. And, again, that's how you win games. That's how you win regular season games. So you have time for your starters to rest. But if the Heat are going to continue to go down this road, they're going to have no time for these starters to rest. Because let's just say this is the end of the season, right? And they're barely above 500 and they would need to make the playoffs. They're in a play-in playoff spot, that 6-7 seed. Or if they're there, that is not where you want to be, because your starters can't rest. Then you have to immediately go play a top seed in the playoffs. That's not the position they want to be in. And if they want to do something about it, they need to trade. They need to make moves. And again, they need more shooters. They need more people who are going to score points. And, also I would even say they need more two-way players, guys who can score threes, or I guess not two-way players, but need more 3-and-D guys. And Duncan Robinson was doing that just a couple of years ago, but now he's kind of fallen off. And Tyler Hero's obviously playing out of his mind. He's playing amazing. I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Max Strus. I love all those guys. But anyone outside of those guys has not really been playing to their potential. And I haven't even mentioned Victor Oladipo yet, who hasn't even played. He has not even touched the floor. And he really needs to come back, because he's that bench piece they're missing. And, I know he's been hurt. I know, he's gone through different things, but when you have this type of team with this type of depth, and that this city is just used to winning and being in that spot in the playoffs, it's really hard to watch. And that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think they do need to make a lot of moves, or maybe not a lot, maybe just one or two, but they need help. They need a lot of help, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They're not really getting that team chemistry that they once had. And obviously this Miami Heat bubble team was way different than what they have now. And right now it's not looking so hot in Miami, and they really, really need to look to make some moves. That's my kind of thoughts on it.
Yeah. We see issues all the time with rosters and injuries and all that. But the teams that are healthy and the teams that have the right coaching staffs are the teams that are on a path to greatness this year. And we've seen the difference between the good teams and the bad teams this year. And we've seen the expectations of teams, whether it's the Jazz or the Hawks or the Bulls or Oklahoma City. We see all the expectations, and these expectations for all these teams are starting to come out. And, those low expectations for those teams that weren't supposed to be that good this year are being risen just because of how consistent the NBA is. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's very interesting to see the difference between all these all these teams and the expectations that are changing so quickly and evolving so quickly throughout this season so far. And we're just a few weeks into the season, so it's hard to see that there are so many different expectations so quickly, so early into the season, but it makes it fun as an NBA fan to see that the NBA is so competitive this year, and there are so many teams that could be fighting for an NBA Finals this year.
I completely agree.
And
So,
and
sorry.
and so as you as me and you both talk about coaching, all of that brings to mind, let's talk about what's going on in Brooklyn. And the new Nets coach just getting his first win. Let's hear your thoughts on what's going on.
So immediately as the Steve Nash situation kind of unfolded, and right before he got let go and fired from the Nets, he had that ejection in the middle of the game, and I don't want to say that's what he's going to be remembered for, but I can just see that face. That face was going around on the internet. I could just see that. That's what I think of when I think of Steve Nash right now. But Steve Nash was obviously not the answer for this team. He wasn't the right fit for them. He wasn't ready, in my opinion. And when you're coaching guys like Kyrie, KD, and then Ben Simmons, and then dealing with all of that, and then also you have to have other players on your team you need to play, and then you have to deal with the GM down your neck, and then it was just a whole thing for him. And I think this whole Brooklyn situation is kind of crazy. Obviously with Kyrie doing his thing, and then Ben Simmons with his stuff, but it's really crazy to me. And it also, once he got fired, it was, I wouldn't say it was shocking, because I think it was going to happen either way. But when I did see it, I was like, okay, so they're really making moves now. They're trying to turn their team around, change their image, and that's what I think they're really trying to do. And I think what KD said about Psy and Nash, and I really think it's coming to light right now. And I think the next person we may see go is the GM, and either he resigns or he gets let go or whatever. But when you have guys like KD, Kyrie, Ben Simmons, and other players on your team, you really have to kind of cater to them, because let's be real here. We've talked about this many times. LeBron, KD, top superstars in this league run the league. And
Yeah.
when you make that type of money, when you're producing so much for your team, you really can make those decisions over. I mean, I would even say over some of these GMs. And like, if KD wants a guy on his team, like, that GM better go try to get him. Same thing with LeBron. Same thing with probably Giannis, and that's just kind of how it's been. But now, once he got fired and all that stuff, obviously the reports of Ime Udoka coming over were coming out, and I saw that. And did I like it? I don't know what my honestly, I really don't remember what my initial thoughts were on the whole Ime Udoka thing, just because obviously he had the whole thing with the Celtics, and he could interview for the Nets job and immediately coach if he really wanted to. But I I liked it after some thought. I know he's got some baggage coming with him, and some of these guys on this Nets team have a lot of baggage with them as well. But I don't know if adding to that would be the right solution, thinking about it now. But Ime Udoka is, I would even say right now, one of the top coaches in the league. And he just was in the finals with the Celtics, and that's really, I think, what they were looking at in majority of the whole interview process, that he was that coach. He got them to the championship just last year. And I think the final decision to hire Jock Vaughn was a better decision, just because he was in the organization. He knows the players, he knows the GM, he knows these types of guys. So in the end, I think they made the right decision. But Ime Udoka would have been a good decision. But obviously, with the baggage that he comes with, it's not something the Nets are looking to add on to their team.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think that's a good thought that everybody has to have in the back of their mind, that this was the best decision for the organization, and this was, you can't look down at this point if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan. The only thing that going forward that you can see is the organization going upward, and they were at their lowest point. So I think as a Brooklyn Nets fan, I think this is the best part about it, is that you still have the talent, you still have everything surrounded. Maybe not Kyrie, obviously, because of all that's happening because of him, but you have Durant, you have Ben Simmons, you have pieces that can lead you to wins, and now they have a new start. So we'll see where all of that goes, but I don't know. I think they can start winning games if they start trusting each other, but we'll see how that.
I completely agree with that, and I do want to add on to that kind of with this whole Nets thing. So I want to speak on Ben Simmons for a second. Ben Simmons right now is getting about 30 minutes a game. He's averaging 5.6 points. He's averaging 6 rebounds a game and then 6 assists. About 1.3 steals as well. And he's really not playing well at all. He had this whole thing happen with him, and the Philly stuff and all that, but I don't know how many more excuses he can use to before this Nets make another move to trade him, because there's no reason that he should be making the money he's making when Patty Mills, Seth Curry, Sumner, Joe Harris, Cam Thomas, Royce O'Neal, Nick Claxton are all performing better than him, and obviously Katie and Kyrie are performing better than him. But it's crazy to me how they are going to play him with these types of minutes. I know now he's coming off the bench. He came off the bench last game, and he really needs to find his footing on this team and really figure it out. But he also did come to a team where he was not going to be the number one option. He was not even going to be the number 2 option. He may be the 3rd option, maybe the 4th or the 5th. Right now, he's the 6th option, and that's kind of where he's put himself. When you have Nick Claxton putting up basically a double-double average, he's 12 points a game, 9 rebounds, but he's playing really well this season. He has a career year. Royce O'Neal coming over from the Jazz, he's playing great, putting up 10 points a game, great role player. And I mean, obviously Cam Thomas breaking out of his shell. I think it's his 2nd or 3rd year in the league. He's about 10 points a game as well. He is shooting really well. Obviously Joe Harris, good shooter. Seth Curry can also shoot. Patty Mills can also shoot. And then what do you have when you get Ben Simmons? You have a guy who can play defense, rebound, pass the ball. And what's his biggest thing? He can't shoot. And I'm sorry, you're in the NBA for what, 6-7 years now, and you really haven't figured out how to shoot. Like, even Lonzo Ball changed his whole shot. Markelle Fultz tried to change his whole shot. Even I just found out about this the other day. I think it was Mason Plumlee has now started to shoot left-handed free throws because he's such a bad free throw shooter. Like, it's crazy to me how these guys are doing this in game, improving their percentages, and Ben Simmons refuses to do it. I don't know, maybe he's not refusing, maybe he just can't do it, but it's absurd to me how this team can allow this to happen, paying him the money that he is making. Like, where are these conversations coming? Like, where's KD and Kyrie in this? Why are they not just be like, you know what, Ben, you need to do this. If you're not going to do it, get off the team. It's got to be, at some point, there has to be a conversation of like, are we going to play you or not? Because at this point, I don't really know if he's adding that much to the team other than on the defensive side of the ball. And that's just kind of where it is now. But, obviously he's got a new coach. Maybe he'll work with him a little more. Maybe he'll put some more time and invest in him. And, that's what you can hope as a Nets fan. Obviously what you just said, you have to look up. And that's what they have to do. And, I mean, I don't know how long KD and Kyrie are going to be around to carry this team. If they really want to win, again, we keep talking about it with all these teams, but they're going to have to make a move. They have to make a move. Because until Ben Simmons can do anything, they're not going to be that good. And they really won't be that championship contender that they want to be. Obviously they had Harden a couple of years ago. And obviously we know how that worked out. But when you have Ben Simmons, it's just absurd to me how this can continue happening how they allow this to happen, and they still are just okay with paying him all this money. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Going off of that, going off of coaching, I don't know. I want to, we've been talking about NBA this whole time, and I know this is, for the fans. I don't want to just talk about the NBA. I want to go into one other topic, and kind of end this episode on a different note. But I want to talk about college basketball. You know, college basketball started Monday night, and all these coaches are gone. Coach K is gone. Roy Williams is gone. And all these top coaches are gone, and other guys are stepping into big shoes. John Shire just got his first win. Big win. He's my guy. Love him. But I want to hear your thoughts on the college basketball season this year, and how different it's going to be.
Yeah, definitely losing these generational coaches, and I don't. You know what? I won't even say generation. I will say, Mike Krzyzewski, hands down, is the greatest college basketball coach of all time, and I will repeat that. Mike Krzyzewski is the greatest coach. Excuse me. Mike Krzyzewski is the greatest college basketball coach of all time. I know a lot of people are going to say all these other names, Dean Smith, and I I'm sorry, but Mike Krzyzewski to me is the greatest coach all around in basketball. When you can consistently get top classes after top classes after top classes after top classes, win as he did, win as many times as he did, do everything that he did. At that point, you can walk into a recruit's house with all these rings on your hand and be like, "You want to come play?" Well, I mean, if
I
you're
would
telling a college or about to be, excuse me, if you're telling a high school recruit that 5-star guy, you got all these rings on, you're a legendary Hall of Fame coach, who's saying no to that? I really don't know. But also, when you look at like the whole basketball, I guess college basketball as a whole this year, obviously, I love Duke basketball. I'm a huge fan of Duke basketball. I grew up a Georgia Tech fan, and obviously we play them twice a year, and I would still be a Georgia Tech fan, but I am a Duke fan as well. I love that program. I really can't complain about it, but again, I think there's a lot of other teams this year as well that are going to be pretty good. I think North Carolina will be good. I think Gonzaga is going to still be good. Houston, Kentucky, obviously, Baylor. Eric Musselman at Arkansas has built a really good program over there. Obviously,
Yeah.
we could talk about smaller schools too, like Creighton. They're going to be pretty good too. Like they always are pretty up there, and they're always in the tournament. Obviously Kansas won last year.
Illinois.
Yep, Illinois, UCLA, Tennessee, Texas, like a lot of these, and Villanova. Not a lot of people are talking about them. San Diego State, like they have guys. Villanova with Jay Wright, San Diego State's defense, Illinois, like Illinois is going to be good. They're going to be good for a little bit now. That coach they got down there is really, really good.
I love Brad Underwood. He's been
Yeah.
a great coach, and he's developed these guys into great players.
Oh yeah.
But
And Illinois' transfers, I don't know if you've seen them, but they got some guys. They got Matthew Mayer from Baylor.
yeah,
They got Terrence Shannon Jr. from Texas Tech. Oh, they're going to be really good.
talking about transfers, I have to do it to you. But
Yep.
as an alum, as a current student, we have to go into the Pac-12. Let's talk about you. I went to the game the other night. It was not pretty. There's a lot to be developed and a lot to be changed. But what are your thoughts on the Sun Devils this year?
Oh boy. uh oh gosh. My thoughts have been pretty actually I take that back. my thoughts have changed over the last 5 years. I've kind of really taken a real look at ASU, and my whole thing is at the beginning, I love Bobby Hurley. We beat Kansas back-to-back years. It was great. We were really having a great year. I think at one time we were in the top 10 in the country, and his basketball program, it was great. But now, obviously we had Josh Christopher come in. We had a bunch of different guys, five-star guys that have come in and really haven't done much. They haven't really produced as much as we thought. And, obviously nothing will ever compare to like James Harden, that type of stuff. But what we have right now on the team, with Bagley, the Cambridge brothers, Collins, DJ Horn, Washington, Olmstead, Gaffney, Enoch, Luther Muhammad, it's really crazy to me. And honestly, it's confusing to me how Bobby Hurley refuses to play Enoch, Luther Muhammad. I know Luther Muhammad has really produced. He came out of high school as a 4-star guy, going to Ohio State originally, then transferring to ASU, but he really hasn't produced. And it was the first game of the season. He got 6 minutes, didn't even put a shot up. And then you go look at Enoch, who was a 5-star center just a year ago, and he gets 2 minutes. I'm sorry, but how does Bobby Hurley refuse to play as 5-star center? I get the development's the whole thing, that he's not doing some things right, but I'm one who thinks that if you're going to learn something, you got to be put in that situation. And Enoch needs to be played. And that's my biggest thing with him is he's not playing the guys who really need to be played. Like, let's just look at this. Luther Muhammad's been there for longer than most of these guys. Same thing with Enoch. Enoch's only been there for this is his second year now.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me, and I will still say this: how the team is going to do this. And I haven't even talked about Frankie Collins yet. He put up 24 shots last game. He put up 11 3-pointers. And why is Bobby Hurley giving this guy these shots? Maybe it's not Bobby Hurley. Maybe it's Frankie Collins, just, running off a pick and roll and he's just putting the ball up or whatever he's doing. But obviously it's not right. And Frankie Collins, wasn't he in the Final Four last year?
Yeah, and to add on to what you said, Frankie Collins went 8 for 24 in the first game.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's absurd to me. Even Alonzo Gaffney, his 29 minutes, 2 for 4. And he put 5 points, 6 rebounds. He got 2 blocks. He did some stuff on the other side of the floor. He was in foul trouble a little bit, but it's crazy to me. It's absolutely absurd.
They played a low-end D1 school too. They played Tarleton State.
Yep.
So once you get to Pac-12 play, you gotta have some changes at least.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously, I think Enoch needs to be starting. I like DJ Horn. Frankie Collins can stay in there. I like the Cambridge brothers are okay, but I'm not a huge fan of them, to be honest with you. Bagley's obviously going to play well. I love Bagley, but I think a lot of moves need to be made. I think they need to rethink their rotations. I think that more of these guys need to play more minutes. And I know college basketball is not a sport where your entire bench unit's going to play, but if you're barely competing with a D3 program and you beat them by 3 points, you really need to be rethinking these rotations. You need to be rethinking your systems. And, we've talked about this before off air, and, Bobby Hurley's system is just not good. His defensive systems, I don't even know if he has a defensive game plan sometimes looking at this team. And same thing on the other side of the floor, like offense, some of the times we'll go down the floor and it's just, are we calling a play? Are we setting a pick? What are we doing? And nothing happens. And so the point guard's just sitting at the top of the key and they're just passing the ball around. There's no picks. There's no off-ball movement. There's no off-ball screens. There's really just no identifying holes in the defense when we're on offense and, attacking it. Well, that's not happening from our guards. And it seems like Frankie Collins and DJ Horn are just, out there, obviously facilitating the ball, but they're taking a lot of shots. Cambridge, Collins, Horn, and Bagley all took the most shots on the team. And those were obviously 4 starters, but again, I'm going to go back to this. Frankie Collins should not be 8 for 24. He should not be taking 24 shots a game and making 8 of them. If you can't make it, why are you taking that many shots? He's 4 for 11 on 3. Like, it's just like you miss and you have to run back on defense because we don't have the size to rebound.
And
I'm pretty sure we almost got, I don't know, we didn't get out rebounded, but God, we don't have a center. Like we don't have guys to do it.
To go off what you're saying though, like this summer, especially when, we've had more free time. I had more free time not being in school. We've been FaceTiming at nights over the summer and just watching the film together and going through the film together and watching their defensive schemes is just so hard to watch, especially as a coach myself right now. It's just so hard to watch and want to critique, and you're just sitting there seeing how bad the team really is and not being able to make adjustments as you see them. So I don't know.
What do you got a quick question for you?
Yeah.
Do you have any early do you have any early tournament winners? Very early in the season?
Well, as you said earlier, I'm also a huge Duke fan. And I'm always gonna stick by my boy John Shire's side. I think he's gonna have a great year. I think they're talented enough to reach the goals that they want to, and I think Duke's gonna be a national champion at the end of this year, and I think it's really going to come down to winning games that they might not win during ACC play, but I think they have the talent and I think they have the coaching to be able to get where they need to go.
I also agree with that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I also wanted to point out that I think Kansas will be pretty good again. Obviously Kentucky will be good, and North Carolina will be good too. Gonzaga is always up there, Houston as well. And for me, on one hand, I love Duke's roster. I think their roster is really, really good, and obviously the transfers that Duke got, they're really good too. And Young's a great asset, and obviously the freshmen that have come in are really just, gosh, they're so good. But then you look at Kentucky, they have Sheway back, and North Carolina, Bacot's back as well, and part of me wants to say North Carolina could take it. I'm personally me. I really don't think Gonzaga is good enough to win the championship. I think they're a good team, and I think they can make Elite Eight, Final Four, whatever. But I don't know if they're going to be that good enough to make it to that championship game that we see all these other teams like Kansas and North Carolina last year. And for me, I think it's going to be anyone from Duke, North Carolina, Houston, or Kentucky, maybe even Kansas to kind of take this. I don't really think Baylor is going to make it that far this year. I like Arkansas. I like what Eric Musselman's building down there. And honestly, I think those 4 teams that I kind of mentioned, 4 or 5 teams, could take it. I think those are the teams to look out for. And yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see. It's going to be a competitive year, and I think there are a lot of teams that can compete for a national championship this year, and I think there are many teams that can see themselves as national champions this year. So it's going to be a fun year to watch, and I can't wait to see how it all pans out. But we are coming down to an end of this episode, so we are going to say goodbye, but this was a great time. Noah, thank you for taking the time as always. Love talking basketball, love hearing your guys fans' thoughts. And hopefully soon we'll have a special guest on once again. And we're glad to keep seeing your guys' thoughts and input on our takes. So thank you guys all for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.